Over 8,000 known human diseases are related to genes. The natural healing of wounds in animals and plants is the result of genes' endeavor to retain their own perfect structures. Scientific exploration and research have shown that there are 100 trillion cells in the human body, and in each cell, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes, and in each chromosome, there are 3 billion base pairs. If all the chromosomes in the human body are linked head to tail, the total length will be more than 600 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun. If all the information of a chromosome is written down, it will fill up a 200,000-page phone book. The difference of chromosomes between individuals is only 0.1%. The comparison of the gene sequences of any two individuals reveals that 99.9% of the gene sequences are the same. The functions of the majority, 97%, of chromosomes within human genomes remain a mystery. Genes, the Book of Life, have been the focus of the Human Genome Project, which mobilized top scientific talents and cutting-edge technologies from the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, France, and China to decode them. After more than a decade of hard work, we finally see the basic framework of the mansion of life, the gene. However, it seems that we have only understood. Do we not consider that the gene is the fruit of the wisdom of the greatest creator? Can such an intricate structure come into being without the greatest creator? Some people may stick to their theory of natural occurrence, but then I ask you, what does natural occurrence even mean? 19. The wonder of the great variety of life. 19千姿百态的生命奇观. Exhibiting its fantastic luster, life of myriad forms is presented everywhere, from the tropic zone, temperate zones, frigid zones to the north and south poles, from plains and canyons to precipitous cliffs, from the underground, the Earth's surface, to the sky, from small creeks and ponds to rivers, lakes, and oceans. With their insignificant sizes but astronomical numbers, bacteria, actinomycete, epiphyte, microzyme, lactobacillus, viruses, and other microorganisms present a dazzling world of life under the microscope. A million species of insects are exhibiting a gorgeous and bizarre world of life. More than 9,000 species of birds are flying in the sky. They are agile and flexible, bearing valiant and varying beautiful shapes that have inspired us to yearn for freedom and the future, causing our thoughts to soar to the distant horizon. Countless fishes, shrimps, shell creatures, and other marine animals have constituted a fantastic and unimaginable underwater kingdom of life. We marvel at and are amazed and puzzled by hundreds of thousands of large, terrestrial animal species with widely differing means. Rushing or leaping, running or climbing, they exhibit their strong and vigorous bearing and their respective skills for survival. With the change of seasons, more than 100,000 species of flowers vie with beautiful girls in their riotous profusion of colors, enchanting and attractive. They are a sight to behold, leaving one reluctant to part ways and longing to return. From the creepy lichens to the tall and straight redwoods, from the float grass swaying in the wind to the meandering kudzu vines, from medlar to loquat, from mulberry and elm to coconut. The magical forms of the vegetable kingdom are so wonderful that they excel the work of nature. We cannot help asking, how do the riotous profusion of wonders of life come into being? Without tissues, organs, brains, and hearts, how can those single-celled monads capture and digest food, excrete feces, move freely, build houses, and have sex? Who has equipped insects with armors? Who has armed the birds with wings? Who has covered the beautiful clothes for flowers? Who has equipped man with the heart? Who else but the greatest creator? 20. The protection mechanism of life, conditioned reflex. 20. 生命的保护机制，条件反射. What is a conditioned reflex? It was a rainy autumn day in 1980. I was looking out of a closed window of a classroom in the Geological Technical School of Zhangjiago when suddenly a classmate named Cheng Hongfu from Sichuan mischievously spat at me from outside the window. Subconsciously, I stepped backward, closing both eyes instantly. This chain of reactions triggered the burst of laughter of Cheng Hongfu, who said jestingly, "Monitor, what a coward you are! The window is closed. How can I spit on your face?" I said, "I did not realize that the window was closed." Do it one more time, and I will not react. I moved closer to the window, thinking that since the window was closed and he could not reach me, I would remain calm even if he spat blood at me. Are you ready? Before he had finished speaking, he spat at me again. Ha ha, monitor. You closed your eyes again. My eyes indeed closed at that moment. Later, I tried a few more times, but my eyes would not listen to my command. Every time he spat, I involuntarily winked my eyes. Later, in the classes of physiology and psychology, I came to know that this involuntary physiological reaction is called a conditioned reflex. Pavlov even conducted an experiment on dogs. The feeding of dogs was always accompanied by the ringing of bells. After some time, the dogs' mouths watered when they heard the bells, even before the food was brought in front of them. Why did this happen? It is because the ringing of bells has become a signal for food for dogs and a conditioned stimulus. The dog's prompt physiological and psychological reaction to this stimulus is called a conditioned reflex. In the chapter Drinking Wine and Rating the Heroes of the novel Romance of Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao related a story to Liu Bei. The green plums on the branch I saw just now in the garden remind me of last year's fight against Zhang Xiu. We were running short of water through the long march then. The army could not put up with the thirst. Suddenly an idea came to me. There is a plum grove ahead. I cried and pointed with my riding whip. Having heard this and thinking of the sour green fruits, their mouths watered, and they did not feel thirsty anymore. Because of the conditioned reflex, the troops of Cao Cao secreted saliva when hearing plums. There are endless examples of conditioned reflex. Poke a crawling caterpillar with your hand or a stick, and it will immediately curl up into a circle. The abnormal behaviors of animals prior to an earthquake. Mimosa's curling of leaves when touched. The palpitation of the heart induced by a sudden sound on a quiet night. The contraction of muscles at the sight of a snake. The sneezes caused by the entrance of specks. The erection of the penis and the secretion of lubricating mucus in the vagina when watching pornographic videos. The tightening of muscles and the flush of the face at the thought of one's enemy. The trembling of the mouth and the shivering of the body in times of fear and tension. The spontaneous resistance when encountering sudden attack. Inexplicable twitching of the eyelids, flush of ears, palpitation, and twittering of muscles. All these are results of a conditioned reflex. Why are there conditioned reflexes in animals and plants? Whether we explain it from a psychological or physiological perspective, apart from the conditioned reflex acquired as second nature, the innate instinctive conditioned reflex cannot be created by the plants and animals themselves. Conditioned reflex primarily serves as a mechanism for life's instinct self-protection and is an instant response at one's subconscious level. Who designed this? Who but the greatest creator? 21两性愉悦不仅仅是为了传宗接代。21. The pleasure of sex is not only for carrying on the family line. The core point of the pleasure in sex is the orgasm during sexual intercourse. None of the first love, adoration, yearning, dating, caressing, and other emotional enjoyments can compare to the orgasm in sex. Then, what is the orgasm in sexual intercourse? To help us understand the feeling of orgasm between males and females, I have selected some sections from Kinsey Reports, Hattie Report on Sex, and especially Sex Codes, China Reports. I feel like I'm in heaven. I have a blurry sense of giddiness, the thrilling and exciting warmth, fullness, humidness, and force. A sense of urgency, an irresistible sense of pulling. I feel extremely excited and short of breath. Meanwhile, I feel my head lifting up as if in a dream. The sound is vague and distant. Time seems still. Joy, happiness, exhilaration, and excitement. I am blissfully ecstatic. I feel terrific, as if I am at my best. It feels like an awakening and the beginning of life. The feeling is incomparably wonderful. It is an ecstasy almost unbearable to human power. Charming, surging blood, carefree, ecstasy, orgasm, unparalleled wonder, intoxicating, full of power, incredible. In some aspects, arousal of sexuality offers me the opportunity to transcend myself and wake up from the dense fog of daily life and existence. I feel as if I have left my flesh and my spirit, caring for nothing that normally seems extremely important to me. Wonderful feeling of caresses. I wish this could go on forever. The stillness of life is like an eternal moment, intertwined strongly through indulging and savoring the sweet pleasure of the flesh. A fantastic sensation. I myself am in another dimension which drifts and melts from the supporting point of my life. A raging flame, violent and engulfing everything. Extremely fantastic. A refreshing and irresistible orgasm is increasing to such an extent that an intense charge surges around the clitoris, just like a space-exploring rocket shooting up explosively. Then the charge radiates in the entire region of my pubes. At this moment, all other things have vanished from my consciousness. It seems that the inside of me is filled with enormous power. The wetness, the heat, and the intensity make me feel incomparably comfortable. During the whole process, all the raging, wonderful feelings are radiating on the internal side of my legs. It seems that all things around me have ceased their existence. I am completely immersed in this wonderful feeling. By far, I have not experienced a more wonderful feeling than this. This feeling is a complete immersion that has nothing to do with will and thought. It has completely conquered me, occupying my body. As for the overall effect of its destructiveness, the best word to describe this physiological feeling is madly carefree. The only feeling I can relate to is a certain form of overall stiffness and tightness and the indistinguishable internal explosion at the sexual organs. My body gradually tightens up. I feel as if I have reached the precipitous peak of perfect happiness. Then I approach the plateau of ecstasy. I utter a sharp scream, glide past the crest plane of bliss. Then I experience 5 or 6 fits of violent twitches and convulsions, which are acute, vehement, and agitating in the beginning and become duller, slower, and milder. This is the orgasm and sexual pleasure. From the above statement, we can see that the physiological and psychological sensations during orgasm are incomparably wonderful pleasures and the ultimate beauty. No wonder Bangu said in the Book of Han, Arts and Literature, sexual intercourse is the ultimate expression of emotion and nature, the boundary of Tao. Jared Diamond, a physiology professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, said, "Human sex is weird. It is magical, incredible, and beyond nature. The pleasure between two sexes is so magical, so soul-stirring, so desirable. No wonder Freud concluded that the driving force of sex is the greatest force that propels social development. Then, who created such a wonderful feeling for humankind? Is sexual orgasm a result of natural evolution? Is sexual pleasure solely for the purpose of reproducing?" R. Stephen Howard, a graduate student at Indiana State University, said, "In terms of energy required, asexual reproduction is a more economical way to transmit genes to one's progeny." His research results showed that asexual reproduction is the most economical way and the most effective way to transmit the genetic traits of a living organism to its offspring. But how did sexual reproduction come into being? Is sexual pleasure only for bearing children? The answer is no. Prostitutes engage in prostitution not to bear children for pleasure-seeking men, and those men do not seek out prostitutes to have children with them. Human intelligence can create a master machine that produces products continuously. So, why couldn't the greatest creator make a matrix that continually produces offspring? The pleasure of sex is purely for the enjoyment of life, and this is the universal love of the greatest creator. As for the propagation of offspring, it is only a byproduct of the pleasure of sex. Moreover, asexual reproduction will pass on diseases carried by genes to future generations. Through copulation, diseases carried by genes can be remitted or even eliminated. The benefits of crossbreeding are evident. Therefore, a species may go extinct without a sex life. Thus, the pleasure of sex is an arrangement of the greatest creator. Sex life conforms to the decree of the greatest creator. Suppressing, inhibiting, or destroying sex life is against human nature. We should have sex life and enjoy it too. Sex life should accompany us to the other shore of life. It is unreasonable to suppress, inhibit, or destroy sex life because it goes against human nature. Why should we refrain from what the greatest creator has created? There is no such thing as debauchery and dissipation in sex life. The more, the better. There is nothing wrong with the Muzi-May phenomenon. If Lin Dayu in A Dream of Red Mansion had experienced an orgasm, she would not have had such a miserable ending. Does this mean that Life Genuine is against Christianity and Buddhism? The seventh precept of the Ten Commandments is, "You shall not commit adultery." In Matthew 5 verses 28 to 29, Jesus said, "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into Gehenna." Gehenna, a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem. The first precept of upholding the right Dharma in Volume 6 of the Buddhist Shurangama Sutra is to abstain from sexual misconduct. If the minds of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of the world are not tainted by sexual desire, they will not be subject to birth and death. If you cultivate samadhi without removing the desire, you cannot transcend worldly sufferings. Even if you have great wisdom and meditation, if you do not refrain from sexual misconduct, you will fall into the demonic path. There are high-ranking demon kings, middle-ranking demon followers, and low-ranking demon women. These demons also have their own followers, and each one claims to have achieved the heavenly path. In the Dharma ending age after my nirvana, these demonic followers will be prevalent in the world, widely promoting greed and sexual misconduct as virtuous conduct, causing sentient beings to fall into the pit of attachment and lose the path to enlightenment. Jesus is God, and Sakyamuni is Buddha. Their profound wisdom is beyond us mortals, and their teachings are invaluable treasures to our life. Jesus instructs us in divinity. Following the supreme road of life guided by Jesus, we can enter the kingdom of the greatest creator. Sakyamuni enlightens us from the perspective of Buddhism. If we want to attain Buddhahood, we must break with lewdness, not only physiologically but also psychologically. Just like the teachings of Jesus, you have already committed adultery even if you only have harbored the lustful desire. Christianity is the religion of God, and Buddhism is the religion of Buddha. The two religions have made indelible contributions to mankind. Through them, we have come to know the road to supreme life space. It is the primary task of Life Genuine to make Jesus and Sakyamuni an integrated part of our life. If the path of human development is comparable to a 3-story building, then Christianity will be on the top level, Buddhism at the middle, and Life Genuine will be at the bottom. From the perspective of the level of life, Buddhism is a direct ship that leads people to the Western Pure Land, the Elysium world in the 36-dimensional spaces, by crossing over human nature. To board this ship, one must cut off lust. Where exactly Christianity wants to guide people in terms of the level of life space, I cannot fully comprehend with my current knowledge. Based on the miracles and teachings of Jesus, it seems that the goal is to make everyone an angel and enter the heaven world, God's paradise. In 12:18-25 of the Gospel of Mark, Jesus said, "For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven." What is an angel? An angel is the super-celestial being and Buddha with divinity. Buddha is under the control of the power of Buddha, while a super-celestial being is the free, elegant, and magically powerful spiritual entity of high energy, second only to God. Christianity guides people to develop in the direction of super-celestial being, which conforms to Jesus' teachings. Only in this way can they have a definite development direction for life space. However, from the activities and pursuits of Christians, it seems that they are still clinging to worldly affairs, to the relations of parents, children, couples, and friends and relatives, and to private properties, which is unreasonable. In Luke 14 verse 26, Jesus said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Because if you don't hate them, you cannot become an angel." For angels, there is nothing like family love. We can see from the teachings of Jesus and Sakyamuni that the ultimate wisdoms are communicable. They have the same purpose. Buddhists are capable of determinately cutting off all their attachments to worldly affairs, including the relations of father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, belongings, status, reputation, and their own souls. They will commit themselves to self-improvement and self-cultivation wholeheartedly. They are the real Christians. However, the so-called Christians may inspire suspicion of crying up wine but selling vinegar. The direction of development for us, mankind, is the direction given by Jesus and Sakyamuni. The problem is that there is a vast ocean between humans and angels, super celestial beings and Buddhas. And how can we navigate our lifeboat through the turbulent and surging vast ocean to reach the ideal shore? If we can abandon worldly pursuits and devote ourselves to cultivation like the monks, nuns, priests, and sisters in the temple, it would be the best way. To one step, it is worthwhile. The problem is, can we do it? Let's drop all other obstacles. How many of us can surmount the huge mountain of the pleasure of sex? I have another question. Why should we surmount this huge mountain now that the greatest creator has equipped us with the pleasure of sex to enjoy? Isn't the feeling of orgasm, entering paradise, feeling celestial, release and proliferation of love, the standstill of time and space, the feeling of being blended into the universe, and the expectation to give up all worldly desire and stay forever at that time point, the highest realm of life we pursue? Our ultimate goal is to become angels, super celestial beings, and Buddhas. It would be too difficult for ordinary people to jump from the starting point to the end point, unless they are born with the wisdom of an angel, like my granny, who was a vegetarian by birth, not due to personal preference, but due to disgust at the smell of fish and meat. Entering graduate school directly from primary school is a process of transcending comparable to the thorough remolding of oneself and reaching the peak of perfection. It is just too difficult. Are there any smoother paths to the final success of becoming a super celestial being or Buddha? Yes, there are. Let's first arrive at the 1,000-year world because the enjoyment of the pleasure of sex will only affect our success of becoming a super celestial being or Buddha and will not prevent us from approaching the 1,000-year world. Please refer to the 1,000-year world of the 36-dimensional spaces. Although it is still hundreds of thousands of miles away from the kingdom of the super celestial being and Buddhas, the 1,000-year world is, after all, a world with sublimated human nature. We can first arrive at the 1,000-year world before reaching the 10,000-year world and finally make it to the world of super celestial beings and Buddhas, the Elysium world. This is comparable to a primary school pupil who pursues their education in the order of primary school, middle school, university, and finally the graduate school. Let's return to our topic. The pleasure of sex is the arrangement of the greatest creator and the favor he has granted us. The greatest creator will not punish us as long as we are grateful to him and remember his grace when enjoying the pleasure of sex. I have seen the greatest creator through the pleasure of sex. Have you? 22. 上帝的杰作，自然之美. 22. The masterpiece of the greatest creator, the beauty of nature. While learning about Introduction to Literature, our teacher told us, we are surrounded by beauty. The reason we have failed to discover beauty is that we lack the eyes to perceive it. In 1986, I went to the Mandarin Duck Reservoir in Jiantao County with my classmates from Zhochuan Education College. We got off the bus on the road from Zhochuan City to Jiantao County. Guess what my first impression was? I felt the beauty of relaxation and happiness for becoming a part of Mother Nature because, as soon as we got off the bus, we saw the vast expanse of the endless Gobi Desert. It seemed that we city dwellers had entered another world of wildness, wonder, remoteness, and vastness. All of us cried out with one voice, "Wow, beautiful." How can we say that the Gobi Desert is not beautiful? When I climbed the Great Wall at Badaling during my study at Beijing Foreign Trade University, I saw the meandering Great Wall fly like a gigantic dragon on the top of the undulating mountains. I felt a beauty of valiance, unrestrained freedom, and flying. During my study at Zhangjiago Geology Technical School, I used to go climbing with my classmates. Standing on the mountaintop and overlooking the wilderness with curling smoke beyond the Great Wall, I felt a beauty of serenity, leisureliness, composure, and ease induced by the picturesque natural scenery. While studying in Lanzhou Education College, I would sit by the Yellow River whenever I had the opportunity. Since I grew up by the Yellow River, I have a special love for it. Watching the surging and rolling river flow in its meandering course, I felt that my thinking had been carried to a remote place, and I was filled with the aesthetic feeling of surging emotions and endless yearnings. In the small islands of Luanda, the capital of Angola, in the Bella port of Mozambique, on the beach of Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, in the end of the earth of China's Hainan Island, in the Cape of Good Hope of South Africa's Cape Town. Everywhere the azure sky and sea elicits in me an aesthetic sense of mystery, fantasy, eternity, and infinity. There is the world-famous Victoria Waterfall on the Zambezi River between Zambia and Zimbabwe. I used to drive a 6-ton truck of the Chinese Jiefeng brand to fetch water from there. Each time I approached it, I was overwhelmed by its tumbling heroism, its vigorous momentum, mountain-shaking power, thunderous rumbling, dragons soaring, and the numerous rainbows among the waterfall created a dreamlike aesthetic feeling of dauntlessness and unrestraint. Harare is a garden-esque city, and Zimbabwe is a green country. Here, birds sing and flowers bloom all year round. Everywhere, you can see lush and green foliage. For years, I wandered among the green mountains and rivers. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the trees, flowers, and grass are extremely beautiful. I have not been to a prairie, but a dance I learned in middle school has always been lingering in my mind. The dance sings praise of the prairie of Hulunbuir in Inner Mongolia, the galloping courser, the herds of sheep, the drifting white clouds in the blue sky, and clusters of small flowers dotting the endless stretch of green land. In my imagination, the prairie is refreshing and intoxicating, and I long for it. The Gobi Desert, mountains, fields, rivers, oceans, creeks, and waterfalls, the blue sky and white clouds, flowers, grass, and trees. All are beautiful. The prairie, even in imagination, is also very beautiful. The starlight stretching across the sky, the morning and evening glows, the hovering eagles, the dancing butterflies, the grapes on the vines, the mouth-watering melons and fruits, the exquisite and translucent gemstones, the sparkling and shining dewdrops, the croaking of frogs, the chirping of insects, the singing of birds, the neighing of horses, and even the mirage. Nature displays strange and stunning beauty everywhere. Nature is beautiful, and man is even more beautiful. I have not seen the 4 ancient beauties in China, nor have I studied any of them carefully. However, I have appreciated numerous Western beauties from the internet, especially nude ones. I have been deeply influenced by Buddhism, Christianity, and Confucianism, but the power of beauty is so great that it can cause the complete collapse of my moral defense line. The temptation of beauty is so strong that it can intoxicate and thrill people. Sometimes I imagine them to be the painted skins, hua pai, in Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, which will suck my marrow and blood, pull out my tendons, and skin me alive. I also know that a beauty of 18 is soft and tender. Her charm is as sharp as a sword that can cut through an ordinary man. Although he may look the same, unknowingly his marrow is sucked clean and dry. However, my natural inclination for beauty is so strong that I wish to be consumed by it. Should we turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to beauty? If beauty can cause our downfall, so can the beauty of nature. Aren't they the same? The earnest and tireless teachings of Jesus and Sakyamuni keep ringing in my ears. On the other hand, beauty bewitches me with its irresistible force. I have been plunged into deep misery and desperation. Why is this? I ponder, I repent, I hate myself, and I pity myself. What should I do? I cannot help but look for the greatest creator, pleading for a definitive answer. Who has bestowed beauty upon everything? If a person has no other purpose than mere survival, they will need nothing more than a kennel and a basin of pig feed. Why should everything be given a beautiful appearance? Finally, I have found the answer. The beauty of everything has been created by the greatest creator, who intended for us to enjoy the beauty of life. Now that the revered greatest creator of the universe has offered us beauty, why should we act against the will of the greatest creator and view beauty as a dreadful disaster? Is Jesus wrong? Is Buddha Sakyamuni wrong? No, not at all. Honey is sweet, but if we cannot extricate ourselves from it, we may put our lives and wonderful future at stake, which is quite unworthy. We must heed the painstaking advice of God and Buddha. However, now that all beauty has been created by the greatest creator, we are entitled to enjoy it. All beauty should be shared and not privatized. Everyone is greedy and exclusive by nature. When one cannot possess certain beauty, they will try every means to decry it and prevent others from enjoying it. I praise all of you beautiful men and women, and through you, I praise the greatest creator. Internet beauties, the road to paradise and Elysium world has been closed to you. Let me lead you to the 1,000-year world. You have shown your beauty to the world and the public. You are not monsters, nor are you sprites. But remember, your beauty is given by the greatest creator. You should always remember the favor of the greatest creator and feel indebted to and love him. However, it will be a different story if you use your beauty for evil. Beauty is the masterpiece of the greatest creator, and the existence of beauty is the best evidence of the existence of the greatest creator. 23. 明亮的眼睛，通向美的窗户。23. The bright eyes, windows to beauty. Of the six senses, vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and spiritual sense, felt by the six sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Vision accounts for more than 80% of our understanding of the material world. Although more than 80% of the knowledge of the non-material world comes from spiritual sense, vision is the foundation for spiritual sense. Thus, eyes are called the windows of the soul. Vision relies mainly on eyes. Although purely a material physiological structure, eyes can project the forms and movements of the boundless universe onto our brains, which enables us to survive effectively in the complicated nature. Without eyes, a person cannot live effectively, and without eyes, humankind cannot survive effectively. So, how did eyes come about? Is it possible that the miraculous and intricate eyes have evolved from a single-celled organism and developed into the fully functional and perceptive eyes of humankind? Human eyes have two functions. One is the function of vision, and the other is the function of aesthetics. The formation of vision involves an entire system of highly efficient image analysis structures. Strictly speaking, the objects we see are not the same objects because a period of time has passed in the process from the perception of an object to the imaging of the object on the retina to the conceptualization of the object after being reflected to the brain by the nervous system. Although it lasts only several 10,000ths of a microsecond, theoretically, the image in the brain is already not the image of the real object. For example, a flower we see may have withered after some time, but the flower in the brain is still the one originally reflected. For another example, when a relative of ours has passed away and is no longer alive, our brains still retain the lovely voice and happy countenance of the deceased. How does vision happen? Vision is a reaction to the stimulation of light energy of the eyes. An object will reflect the light from the sun or other light source. Via pupils and lens, the reflected light will fall on the retina for imaging to take place. Then, stimulated by light energy, the nerve cells on the retina will convert the light signal into a bioelectrical signal, which will deliver the vision information to the nerve center via optic nerves and finally to the brain. The brain's mechanism for analysis, judgment, and identification will form the concepts of the object's size, shape, and color and then pass on these concepts to the related parts of the body, ordering them to maintain high vigilance and be ready to respond to emergencies. For the smooth running of such a complicated program, a man of supreme wisdom is needed to conduct the perfect design of the eyes, just like the design of cameras by scientists. We can know that the eyes are designed by the greatest creator through the following passages. What is visible to the eyes is only the visible light with wavelengths ranging between 400 and 760 nanometers. Beyond this visual range, the world is completely different. The blue sky is no longer blue. Our eyes would be overwhelmed by the variegated and weirdly colorful scenes created by cosmic rays such as infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays, beta rays, X-rays, electromagnetic waves, and particle flux. In less than 10 minutes, our nervous system would become chaotic and we would go insane. Moreover, we might occasionally perceive spirits, immortals, goblins, devils, monsters, paradise and hell, or even the thought waves in other people's minds. Then we would not be able to behave like rational beings and enjoy the beauty of life in a muddle-headed and unrestrained manner. Enable the eyes to distinguish between different colors. Within the cone-shaped photosensitive cells of the human eye's retina, there are three different photopigments that can absorb blue light with a wavelength of 445 nanometers, green light with a wavelength of 535 nanometers, and red light with a wavelength of 570 nanometers. The combination of these three lights in varying proportions has created a vast array of colors. Our eyes have the ability to distinguish these subtle color differences. If not, we would all be colorblind, and how could we fully enjoy the infinite beauty of nature? Give the eyes a broad field of vision. Our eyeballs are only 24 millimeters from front to back, 23 millimeters from top to bottom, and 23.5 millimeters horizontally. The pupil of the eye is only 2.5 to 4 millimeters in diameter, but with the ability to scan widely, we can see views within a range of dozens of kilometers. If our eyes do not have this function, and we could only see an area the size of our eyes, our field of vision would be extremely limited, like looking through a bamboo tube at something a few meters away. Our field of vision would be very narrow, and we wouldn't be able to see a wolf approaching or a snake crawling up to our feet. This would be very troublesome, wouldn't it? Provide the eyes with stereoscopic vision. People often say, we can see clearly at a glance, but can one see clearly with only one eye? Try closing one eye and see if you can thread a needle or pour strong sulfuric acid accurately into a small test tube in a chemistry lab. Therefore, having two eyes is important. Enable the eyes to blink. The eyes blink every 2 to 8 seconds. Why do we blink? If our eyes remain open all the time, they will become dry, astringent, and may attract dust and bacteria. If this continues for an extended period, we may lose our eyesight. By blinking, tears are evenly distributed in the eyes to moisten the cornea and conjunctiva, preventing dryness and astringency, maintaining the luster of the cornea, and cleaning the conjunctival sac of dust and bacteria. See how considerate the greatest creator is. Provide the eyes with a mechanism for self-protection. The eye is a complex, sensitive, and delicate organ that cannot be protected by relying on human self-awareness. Therefore, the greatest creator has designed eyebrows, eyelashes, eyelids, and tears for protection. Eyebrows, growing on the protruding supraorbital ridges, ward off dust and sweat from above like an umbrella, preventing them from entering the eyes. Eyelashes resemble bamboo curtains or two platoons of embattled sentinels, always ready to keep away and block the unannounced invasion of enemies like dust and microorganisms. Eyelids act as loyal soldiers guarding the frontier line of the eyes. Whenever foreign matter or strong light attacks, the eyelids close up immediately and protect the eyes within them from harm. This prevents foreign matter from damaging the eyeballs and strong light from hurting the optic nerves. In case foreign matter or bacteria invades the eyes, tears from the lacrimal gland flush away the foreign matter. Lysozyme and immunoglobulin in tears inhibit bacterial growth and kill bacteria by decomposing the sucrose mortierolate in the cell wall. This protection mechanism is perfect. Is it a result of evolution? Our eyes have possessed these functions since humans appeared on Earth. They have not evolved or regressed, nor have they gone through gradual perfection and evolution. In addition to their visual function, eyes also serve an aesthetic purpose. Expressions such as bright eyes, speaking eyes, amorous eyes, flirting eyes, and so on provide us with aesthetic enjoyment. I have brainstormed hundreds of schemes to adjust the size and position of the eyes to find a better design. For example, placing the eyes at the top of the head, at the back of the head, or on the buttocks, palms, or beneath the mouth. I also considered exchanging the positions of the eyes and ears or replacing human eyes with those of horses, rats, or frogs. However, only the current size and position of the eyes are just right, and any changes will lead to ugliness. Try it and see. Through our eyes, we can see the greatest creator and witness the exquisite and profound wisdom of the greatest creator. Beauty is the masterpiece of the greatest creator, and the existence of beauty is the best evidence of the existence of the greatest creator. 24. 奇妙的生物遥感、传感和感应. 24. The marvelous biological remote sensing, telesthesia, and telepathy. Let's first look at the following cases. Case 1. Huiyin reported in 4 Flowers and 4 Dragons, the story of 2 quadruplets. If one of the quadruplets catches a cold, the other three will surely have a fever. Three brothers yawned in step with each other, with three little mouths opening simultaneously. They uttered, "Ah," sonorously, as if proclaiming their manliness. Case 2. There is a report called The Unexpected Reunion of Kindred, the details of which I cannot remember very well. It relates the reunion of a mother and daughter after a separation of more than 4 decades. Under a strange combination of circumstances, the daughter was adopted by other people. So she took the foster mother for her birth mother, and indeed, she did not know that she had a natural mother who was now old and lived alone, knowing nothing about her only child, who had been separated from her since very young. A curious coincidence brought the daughter into an out-of-the-way alley, where she coincidentally met with an old lady. Because she had accidentally helped the old lady, she was invited by the old lady into her humble hut, where she accidentally saw a picture on the wall of the old lady when she was young. She was astonished because her foster mother had given her a photo, which had been placed at the bottom of a box for decades. The photo on the wall was the same as the one she had placed at the bottom of a box. After talking with the old lady, she came to know that the old lady in front of her was none other than her own mother. The mother and the daughter felt both misery and happiness. Thanks to the mercy of heaven, the old mother had eventually found her daughter that she missed every day. Case 3. Dead body returns home reported that when the famous American actor Charles Cleveland died in 1899, he was buried in Galveston, Texas. The next year, a hurricane flooded the cemetery. The family of the deceased searched everywhere, but with no result. However, 28 years later, in September 1927, this magical coffin mysteriously reappeared. It drifted for 3,000 kilometers and arrived at the homeland of Cleveland, Prince Edward Island. Case 4. According to the omens of mice house moving, after World War II, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond Macy, who were in the film industry in New York, rented an apartment at number 80 Street of East Borough. One day, Mrs. Macy spotted from the window on the second floor that many mice were pouring out in full force from the house opposite, running out as fast as they could. Shortly after, the old lady living in the opposite house died of suicide. After the death of the old lady, the mice returned in troops to the house. Sometime later, a blonde dancing, fashionably dressed girl moved in, who was often accompanied by a young man. One day the flock of mice once again fled from the house. A few days later, this young man died of a heart attack. After the death of the young man, the dancing girl moved out. Strange enough, the mice once again returned to their old home. A short time later, a young industrialist took residence in the house. After a period of peace, those mice left the house for another time. Mrs. Macy has a hunch that something unexpected might happen again. True enough, this young industrialist died in a plane crash. It is said that the house was built by a famous lawyer who suffered from lunacy shortly after the building was completed and eventually killed himself by jumping into the Hudson River. Case 5. According to the report of the miraculous biological telesthesia, as early as the last century, Professor Gregory of Edinburgh University had introduced an experiment of Barua. In the experiment, Barua divided the 50 snails into 25 pairs. Each pair was separated from the other pairs. After some time, the same letter was written on the shells of each pair of snails, and one of the pair was brought to America, the other still remained in Paris. Later, at a given time, the snail staying in Paris was stimulated with electric current. At the same time, the one brought to America also exhibited the same electric stimulation reactions. Alright, let's just take the above examples to explore what remote sensing, and perception are all about. Remote sensing. First, I'd like to make it clear that the remote sensing I am talking about is purely biological remote sensing, which is different from the electromagnetic wave remote sensing, sonar remote sensing, and geophysical field remote sensing applied in aviation, spaceflight, navigation, meteorology, mapping, global positioning, resources survey, environmental protection, disaster prevention, hydrology, and geology, and archaeology. In the mythological novel Feng Shen Bang, there are two extraordinary individuals named Qianli Yin, Thousand-Mile Eye, and Shunfeng Air, Wind-Piercing Ear. Their abilities allow them to perceive everything happening in Jiangxia's military camp from a distant location. The mice's behavior in Case 4 is an example of animal remote sensing. The special ability of remote clairvoyance, frequently mentioned in the science of Qigong, is also a kind of remote sensing. Then, what is remote sensing? Remote sensing is a biological ability to perceive the condition of a distant person, object, or scenery by receiving the thought waves or electromagnetic waves emitted by them through directional thinking. Remote sensing is not a mysterious phenomenon, but rather a resonant frequency. Just like a television channel that receives electromagnetic signals of live broadcasting transmitted by a TV station and informs us of the happenings in a different place, or like a radio that picks up the frequency of a certain radio station and broadcasts the clear voice of the announcer. Remote sensing is a natural phenomenon in the universe, but its occurrence is very unusual. Strictly speaking, the scenes described in science fiction are not sheer fabrications, but a reality that has transcended time and space. Some people can accurately predict the future because they have actually mastered the technology of remote sensing. For example, the French Dr. Nostradamus, the eccentric Dorothy, Sakyamuni, and so on. The death of Russian Tsar Ivan at the end of the 16th century had been accurately predicted by 60 Russian prophets 12 days prior to his death. It is said that some people had given up the journey on Titanic for remote sensing its forthcoming disaster. There are a lot of prophecies in the Bible, the Quran, and the Sutra. Actually, these prophecies are a kind of remote sensing. My description of the 36-dimensional space is also the result of remote sensing. Explanations regarding the origin of the universe, the origin of humanity, and the origin of life are merely perceptions beyond time and space based on spiritual intuition. They do not rely on my meager knowledge or logical reasoning. From a scientific perspective, my arguments and evidence may be insufficient, but I believe that humanity will eventually know that what I am saying is correct. The number of people with the ability of remote sensing cannot be too many, just like there can be only several queen bees in a swarm of bees. The world will fall into chaos if everyone is capable of remote sensing. So I shall drop the topic here. If you are capable of remote sensing, it is your good luck. Sensation. Sensation is a physiological phenomenon, and it refers to a kind of physiological transmission of perception that goes unnoticed. The most unique example is the arrival of milk after childbirth. Taking humans as an example, regardless of how full a woman's breasts are, and despite engaging in sexual activities countless times, even after being pregnant for 10 months, milk will not appear until the child is born. Only the physiological response triggered by the baby's need for milk after birth leads to the abundant production of milk. This is similar to the tear glands secreting tears. Tears are only produced when a foreign object enters the eye or when there is a significant emotional fluctuation. Cases 1, 2, and 5 are examples of biological sensation. Remote sensing can be acquired through conscious cultivation, while sensation is an unconscious physiological behavior, a physiological mechanism, and a natural program designed by the greatest creator. In this regard, we don't need to pay excessive attention. Telepathy. Telepathy is a universal phenomenon in the universe. Everything has telepathy. Strictly speaking, all activities of life forms are the result of telepathy. More accurately, all the phenomena we see are the result of telepathy. The macrocosmic universe is the result of telepathy, and the microcosmic universe is also the result of telepathy. Both organic and inorganic substances are capable of telepathy. Humans, animals, plants, and insects have telepathy. Mountains, rocks, rivers, and weather are all capable of telepathy. The effective evidence for the telepathy of microscopic matter can be found in the fact that the famous Buddhist master Jinkong cited on many occasions the Japanese scientist's research on the crystal of water molecules when expounding on Mahayana's Sutra of Infinite Life. He said that when we say thanks and love to water, the arrangement of water molecules will be a very beautiful crystal, and that when we are hostile and indifferent to it, the arrangement of water molecules will be a chaotic assemblage. Hence, Master Jinkong told us that since the human body is 70% water, as long as we show more care for water in our body, then the water molecules in our body will act effectively, and we will increase our health. We may be free from illness all our life. He went further to enlighten us that since 70% of the earth is covered by water, as long as we don't pollute the rivers, lakes, and oceans, the earth will not be inflicted with floods, inundations, droughts, and hailstones. Like the gravitation between everything, The telepathy between everything exists and occurs everywhere and at any time. The most obvious examples are electromagnetic induction, sound wave induction, photoelectric induction, and so on. Now there are automatic doors in cities around the globe. The door closes when a person leaves and opens when a person approaches. Some street lamps will be automatically turned on when it becomes dark and will be automatic. Anti-theft devices will automatically set off alarms when a person enters a security zone. Telepathy between life forms happens at every moment. In case 1, the quadruplets will all have a fever as long as one of them catches a cold. When one yawns, the others will open their mouths simultaneously. The same phenomenon occurs with twins and multi-births. Different degrees of telepathy occur at any moment between mother and daughter, father and son, lovers and enemies. The abnormal behaviors of animals before earthquakes, the pain in joints suffered by arthritis patients before heavy rain, the frantic movements of insects before storms, the suicidal behavior of plants like bamboo prior to a disaster, and the sudden fidgets and vexations experienced by people occasionally are all results of telepathy. 2 days ago, November 30th, 2003, I ran into a former colleague of mine. He had rented a luxury villa with a courtyard where 4 rows of grapevines, each 30 meters long, grew. He told me that the grapevines had not produced grapes for many years, but after he began to live in the villa, he watered the grapevines every 3 days, applied fertilizers, hoed up weeds, and dug up the soil. Now the grapevines are heavily laden with grapes, and he can earn a handsome sum of money from them alone. He said excitedly, "Plants will repay when they get enough care and protection from humans." This is also a kind of telepathy. In front of the window of the master bedroom in my yard, there is a tree whose name is unknown to me. It blooms small white and purple flowers, which emit a strong fragrance when the tree is in full bloom. One year, when I stood in front of the flowers, I muttered to myself, "These flowers are so beautiful and fragrant. How wonderful it would be if the tree is in bloom every day. It would be very good if the tree can flower many more times every year." 3 months later, the tree was in bloom once again. I asked the gardener, Gift, who had worked in this compound for nearly 10 years, whether this tree would flower twice every year. He replied, "No, it flowers only once every year, and I don't know why it has flowered twice this year." Suddenly, I realized that it was my wish that had prompted it to flower one more time. I felt very guilty. This is a flower tree with great spiritual nature. To satisfy my private needs, it has overstretched itself against the law of nature. It must have tried hard. The second time, the flowers had such a faint fragrance that one could hardly smell it. This is the result of overspending. I apologized in my mind, flower tree, I am deeply indebted to you for your kindness. I understand you now. Please don't overdo yourself again in the future. Meanwhile, Life Genuine will try its best to protect you and all the flowers, grass, and trees. You are silently dedicated to mankind, flowering to beautify the environment, bearing fruits for people to savor, afforesting to conserve water and soil, exhaling oxygen, and inhaling carbon dioxide to purify the environment, and photosynthesizing to create nourishment carbohydrates for humans and animals. Without you, there would be no insects, animals, and humans. You are the foundation on which life depends. Life Genuine will make it its tenet to protect the lives of all living things. We humans should no longer be arrogant, conceited, and ungrateful. There is telepathy between plants and humans, as well as telepathy between humans and gods. I have a friend whose father was nearly 80 years old. He was kind-hearted, amicable, and genial, and very healthy in Zimbabwe. However, there was a period when he was vexed and troubled, insisting on returning home to his homeland in China. My friend had no choice but to send him back. Soon after, the old man passed away in his sleep. Why did the old man feel anxious and eager to return home when he was enjoying a very good life in Zimbabwe? This is the beckoning of the gods. Although he did not know it, the old man had experienced telepathy physiologically. Moreover, telepathy also occurs in many of our daily recreational activities. Last month, November 2003, my wife and I played poker games with some friends for 6 hours. The cards in our hands were very bad from beginning to end. Our friends had climbed over several mountains while my wife and I were still fixed at the starting point. Finally, I realized it was because my wife and I felt upset and distracted several days before. When one's mind is disturbed, the cards will also be a mess. Only if one has a calm mind will they get very good and orderly cards. You can try it if you're interested. Recently, another case of telepathy happened to me. I have the habit of reading Reader. Once I read several articles by the Taiwanese writer Lin Qingxian and discovered that Mr. Lin has a very high spiritual nature. As far as I can tell, however ignorant I may be, Mr. Lin is one of the people with the highest spiritual nature in the Chinese nation. I consider it great luck and happiness to read more of his books. However, I am abroad and have very little chance to buy his books. I never expected that recently a girl of my children's generation came from China and brought me 2 books written by Mr. Lin, Search the Homeland of Soul. Why did she buy books instead of anything else for me? Why did she buy Lin Qingxuan's book instead of other books? It turned out that this was a result of my telepathy. Seth said, physiological symptoms are communications from the inner self, indications that we are making mental errors of one kind or another. In other words, physical symptoms are a response of the body to psychological and spiritual ailments. All the wars, conflicts, natural disasters, and diseases in human history are the result of the mutual influence between gods, humans, animals, and plants. The Great Flood in the time of Noah was also a consequence of the induction caused by human conceit and arrogance. Remote sensing, sensation, and telepathy are all embodiments of Tao, as described by Lao Tzu in Tao Te Ching. Tao is an embodiment of the spirit of the greatest creator. Ultimately, telepathy is designed to maintain the balance of nature. We can hence feel the unfathomable profundity of the greatest creator's wisdom. 25. 腐化,新生命的养料. 25. Decomposition, the nourishment for new phenomenon in the natural world. It is a transformation of decay and putrefaction. Decay and putrefaction are undesirable, but decomposition is a form of energy conversion and a transcendent aspect of life. You can observe a fallen apple from the tree. It rots at the beginning, but after a period of time, only an empty shell is left. Then, after some time, even the empty shell vanishes. Where has the entire apple gone? It has undergone the process of decomposition. All things in the material world will go through decomposition, without which there would be no such material world. Just imagine, how can we have today's environment and civilization if the carcasses of animals remain intact for thousands of years, if the leaves fallen from the trees remain as fresh as ever, if the piled garbage does not rot, if the slave society and feudal system do not corrupt, and if despotism is always maintained, if the original religion does not corrupt, and if the ancient civilizations last for eternity? The rotten carcasses of animals and the decayed plants will be decomposed by microorganisms in soil or water and converted into nutrients, which can be absorbed and utilized by other plants. The ancient religion and civilization were decomposed by the development of the times and converted into knowledge and wisdom, which can be absorbed and utilized by the present religion and civilization. How perfect the design is! The waste is changed into valuable materials, and the corrupted is turned into wonders. Who is capable of such considerate and flawless thinking? The greatest creator. 26. 生死令凡俗人迷惑的现象. 26. Life and death, a phenomenon puzzling mortals and laity. This earth witnesses the birth and death of a huge number of animals and plants every day and every moment. Life and death is a universal phenomenon in nature. Everyone has embarked on the journey towards death since the moment of their birth. The happiness of life and the sadness of death are the basic emotions of mortals and laity. When a family welcomes the birth of a child, they are filled with joy, and when they lose a loved one, they experience profound sadness and grief. Apart from extraordinary beings like Jesus and Sakyamuni Buddha, who are transcendent, wise, and free from worldly concerns, few people can escape this cycle of confusion and grasp the true meaning of life and death. The tragedy of life lies in ignorance and the inability to transcend the cycle of life and death. For thousands of years, people have been seeking the way to immortality. Modern medicine and science are also probing into the secrets of longevity. I wonder why people are so happy about life but so grieved at death. Seeking life entails endless troubles, and seeking death brings infinite benefits. What would the world look like if none of the plants and animals on the earth died? And if our great-great-great-grandparents survived until today and each family had a thriving population? Some will think it would be best if they all die and we all survive. Well, suppose they all die and we all survive. See if we are better off. It would be okay as long as we can distinguish who they are and who we are. We must know at the same time that everyone wishes the same as you and me. Then in the end, who is to die and who is to survive? Is it so good to live and so bad to be dead? Take a look at human history, pay a visit to your neighbors, and ponder over the question of what good there is to live and what harm there is to die. Forget about time immemorial. Let's talk about the time from Sakyamuni Buddha to the present. How many people have lived a good life, and how many have suffered a bad death? Taking Chinese society as an example, antenatal training has been provided even before a baby is born. Abandoning the music of nature, the greatest creator, God, and Buddha, people spare no efforts to inoculate the fetus with the imperfect music of mankind. Immediately after birth, adults try every means to provide the little babies with toys and cartoons instead of having them get in touch with flowers, birds, insects, and fish in nature. Before the age of schooling, the children have begun their preschool education, learning piano, painting, kung fu, and dancing. They have no opportunity to bring their own instinct into play, nor have fun in nature. When the children have just begun to know about the world around them, they will be burdened with heavy and formless pressures. In addition to the heavy school bags and the endless homework, adults spare no efforts to add extra education for them. Moreover, endlessly lecturing began to pour onto children. You must be someone, you have to get full marks in exams, otherwise you'll be lagging behind others. Child, I am doing all this only for your good. You must work hard and strive to become an excellent student. You must enter top-tier middle school and then qualify yourself for study at a prestigious university. Otherwise, you will have no foothold in this society. Why are you so fond of playing, my kid? Look at Xiao Ming. She is so diligent and so promising. You must learn from her. These and many more lectures have left children at a loss. The 100-meter dash begins with middle school. Students are preoccupied with study and examinations day and night. Teachers and parents are carefully supervised, and society is imprudently promoting the atmosphere of elites. As a result, the splendor of human nature is inundated in the endless darkness. Is it supposed to be easy after entering university? No, it's not. Comparing oneself to others in terms of food, clothing, housing, and transportation among classmates is a small matter. What's more serious is the forced indoctrination in the field of ideology and the blind and unlimited pursuit of knowledge. University is supposed to be a place to cultivate people with noble moral character, but the majority of universities are not cultivating living, breathing human beings, but rather robots who have lost themselves. We must bring honor to our ancestors, we must win glory for the motherland, and we must win credits for our nation. Colleges have been fostering narrow-minded notions. What's worse, some colleges and organizations are teaching students how to make their first fortune, how to rise in the world, and how to attract handsome men and beautiful women to themselves. This is a worrisome era. The real distress begins with graduation from universities. There are a bewildering number of roads ahead. Which one shall I take? The unbridgeable gap between dreams and reality, the intangible conflicts between ethics and interest, the marriage, the houses, the cars, and the expected splendid success. All these have put university students at loose ends, which has fragmented the entirety of their spiritual nature into an unbearable scene. If university graduates are like this, then those with no university education must have experienced even greater conflicts and misery in mind. Having married and established a family doesn't necessarily mean entering a safe harbor. Heart-wrenching matters often occur. Supporting elderly parents and raising children are common responsibilities, which people can endure. What they may find intolerable are the conflicts and battles between. Additionally, the occurrences of birth, aging, sickness, death, separation from loved ones, resentment, aversion, encountering situations we wish to avoid, and impermanent events can stir up a once beautiful life into chaos. We see people on the streets, each of them looking vigorous and elegant. But once we get to know their inner world, we will find every one of them emaciated and fatigued. Many people in my neighborhood are businessmen. They all have nice houses, servants, and good cars. Then they should be happy and satisfied, right? The answer is no. When I chatted with them one day, one of them said, "Actually, if I have a million yuan RMB, I will be doing well in China." Another person, as if he has heard the talking of an alien, taunted, "A million? What can you do about it? It is barely enough to buy and decorate an apartment." Another said to me, "I heard you are writing a book, right? You are a little old-fashioned. Don't you know that in today's time you are everything if you have money and you are nothing if you don't? Make haste to earn money." Yet another person, a woman, preached, "Nowadays money is God. How much is conscience worth?" I was overwhelmed, and I shuddered. No wonder they are constantly striving, always chasing after every penny and valuing money over everything else. I see the world as ruled by goblins, devils, and monsters. Am I wrong? Or am I the real devil? Or do I simply not fit in with this world at all? I feel that living is suffering, and human life is rightly a sea of suffering. The sea of suffering is boundless, but turning back is the shore. Turning back? What does turning back mean? Turning back means death. Why die? For living is worse than death. How to die? Nirvana. How can nirvana be achieved? Through self-improvement and self-refinement. How does one self-improve and self-refine? By raising consciousness and increasing wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the supreme and profound understanding of life and death. How can one acquire supreme and profound wisdom? By understanding what life and death are. Then what is life and what is death? That one is inexplicably brought into the world as a result of karma is called birth and life. That one rushes about blindly and departs the world unjustifiably is called death. Birth is accidental. Is death inevitable? Both birth and death are inevitable. Since both death and birth are inevitable, and individuals have no choice and cannot resist, then why do we have to understand life and death? By understanding life and death, one can cast off life and death. How can one cast off life and death? By reaching the realm of no birth, no death. What is the realm of no birth, no death? Elysium world is the realm of no birth, no death. What is Elysium world? Elysium world is one of the 36-dimensional spaces, namely the world described by Jesus and Sakyamuni. Is there really such a world? Or is it only a tale? Yes, there is. I am telling the truth. Then please demonstrate it to me. I cannot, because it is another time-space, which is invisible to the naked eye. The mirages that occur occasionally are part of Elysium world. Then there is no way to see it? Yes, there is. What way? Through spiritual sense. What is spiritual sense? A person has 6 sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which are respectively responsible for the 6 senses: vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and spiritual sense. Spiritual sense is the perception in everyone's consciousness and a spiritual nature apperception. Why does my spiritual sense not have such capability? Because your spiritual sense is too dull. Why is my spiritual sense dull? Because it has been polluted. What has polluted my spiritual sense? Your spiritual sense has been polluted by images in nature, the values of human society, and your prejudices. Then how can I restore my spiritual sense? By awakening to the truth. What is awakening to the truth? Awakening to the truth means getting to the bottom of a phenomenon. What is a phenomenon? A phenomenon can be anything that we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. According to you, there are too many phenomena. Yes, Buddhism talks about 84,000 Dharmapariyas, but actually, Dharmapariyas are unlimited. What is Dharmapariya? Dharmapariya is a means to grasp a phenomenon and find out the ultimate essence of its essence. What is essence? The essence is something concealed that causes the occurrence of a particular phenomenon. Then what is the ultimate essence of essence? The substrate causing the essence is the ultimate essence. That is to say, the greatest creator is the ultimate essence? Yes. How do we get to know the greatest creator? This book of mine can enlighten you on the understanding of the greatest creator. Oh, I see. What do you see? The birth of man is like falling into the sea of suffering, and so it is something lamentable. The death of man, however, is like being severed from the sea of suffering, and so it is something delightful. Yes, but not entirely. Why? Because death is not the final resting place. Why is death not the final resting place? Didn't you say that man will enter the Elysium world after death? Death is only a surface phenomenon. Behind death is the transmigration of life. Some people will return to the human world after death, some will become animals after death, some will enter the 1,000-year world, and some will go to the 10,000-year world. Only a very limited number of people will go to the Elysium world after death. So how can we feel happy if some people are even worse and are more miserable than in the human world after death? You're preaching about past lives, afterlives, and reincarnation is too inscrutable. How can we believe in something that cannot be proved by science? Science is materialism. Science cannot prove what is beyond the material world. But the universe is composed of material and non-material. Science can only prove half of the universe, not the other half. Take my consciousness, for example. How big is it? What color is it? How heavy is it? What shape does it have? Science cannot provide answers to these and many other questions. Therefore, you cannot entirely negate what cannot be proven by science. Then can you prove that man has past lives and afterlives? Yes. One is the records about past lives in history, which can be found in the literature of many nationalities. Another is the record of facts by the International Near-Death Research Institute. The third is the descriptions by the sages and saints like Jesus and Sakyamuni. These are only legends, hearsays, or religious doctrines, and thus are not convincing. Can you come up with something new? Yes, homosexuality is an example. The rule for the biological world is that same sexes repel each other, and opposite sexes attract each other. So why is there homosexuality? And why can homosexual love be so dear as to risk one's life? This involves the gender of one's past life. If a woman has a past life as a man, the inertia of biology will continue to play its role and will incline her to instinctively like a woman instead of a man, although she has become a woman in this life. When she meets a woman with the same past life, they will easily connect and fall in love with each other. Similarly, if a man has his past life as a woman, then he will still be inclined towards men in this life. Homosexuality is not a morbidity, but a spontaneous instinct, which may fade away with the passage of time. Moreover, there is a saying, rivers and mountains may be changed, but it's hard to alter a man's nature. What is true nature, and why is it unchangeable? Nature refers to innate characteristics. When does nature come into being? Is it during primary school? When held in mother's arms? Since the time of the embryo in the mother's body? Since the time of existence in the womb? Or since the combination of sperm and ovum? If nature begins from the time mentioned above, then there is no question of hard to alter a man's nature. Therefore, it can be concluded that nature has been around for centuries and is deeply rooted, unlikely to change in a relatively short period. We can observe people around us or study some special individuals. By comparing their habits to those of certain animals, we can easily deduce that certain people possess the original nature of those animals. Thus, we can conclude that such people may have been those animals in their past life. For example, for thousands of years, philosophers and thinkers have pondered the question, who am I? But have failed to answer it. Who am I? Am I my family? No, because I am still myself even without my family. Am I my clothes? No, because I am still myself after I undress. Am I my teeth? No, because I am still myself even after losing all my teeth. Am I my hair? No, because I am still myself even if I become bald. Am I my eyes? No, because I am still myself even if I become blind. Am I my legs? No, because I am still myself even if I am amputated. Am I my heart? No, Because I am still myself after organ transplantation. Am I my blood? No, because I am still myself even after a blood transfusion. If I am none of these, then who on earth am I? Well, I am Tathagata. What is Tathagata? Tathagata is the essential origin, the consciousness, soul, that already exists beyond the flesh and endures hardships in this world by residing in this home of my flesh. When this home of my flesh ceases to exist, I still exist. All I have to do is find another home. It's like crossing a river. I borrowed a boat, but I would give up the boat and go on shore after I crossed. Buddhism preaches that an enlightened heart is perceptive of nature, which is perceptive of Buddha. If we understand this principle, we are already Tathagata Buddha. We will go directly to the Elysium world after death and won't have to return to the human world to continue struggling. All right, regarding the phenomenon of life and death, let's discuss just these briefly. My purpose is not to stick to the facts, but to explain that the phenomenon of life and death, which is difficult to reverse, is determined by the greatest creator and has its own purpose and meaning. Without the greatest creator, there would be no life, let alone life and death. 27. The crowing of roosters. I grew up in the countryside, and I have vivid memories of roosters crowing. Especially when I needed to wake up early, my diligent and kind mother would use the crowing of roosters to determine the time, prepare breakfast and packed food in advance, and then wake me up. Roosters crow 3 times each night at regular intervals. The first crowing is at about 3:30 in the early morning, the second around 4:30, and the last around dawn. Excuse me, the time of crowing may not be accurate because I have been away from my hometown for more than 2 decades, and I am now living in an area where no crowing of roosters can be heard. Some people say that roosters crow to tell other roosters, "This is my territory, and do not come in." Others say that roosters crow to attract hens. I would say that roosters crow to tell people the time. Prior to industrial civilization, people did not have clocks and watches. For survival, they had to know the time of the night. For example, 2 or more people on a hunting trip would set the second crowing as the time to get up. Or a group of people were to complete a certain task together and set the third crowing as the time to gather at the end of the village. Roosters crowing is involuntary. It is a conditioned reflex or induction of its biological clock in its body against the stimulation of the magnetic wave of the magnetic field when the Earth rotates to a certain angle. The rooster is not aware that its crowing is to tell people the time of day and serve people, just like us humans who are living on the Earth and are not aware that we are serving the greatest creator. The rooster cannot realize the meaning of its crowing late at night, but the man who creates the rooster is well aware of the meaning. In the universe, there is no sound that does not have a purpose. The man who creates the rooster does so for the convenience of human survival, and thus has created this miracle. If roosters could realize the purpose of their crowing, they would stop doing so when they see that many of their friends and relatives have been killed by humans. If the crowing is to warn others of their own species not to violate their territory late at night, thinking to themselves, "Who will come to invade my territory at such late hours? I'd better conserve my energy and strength till tomorrow and fight off whoever has the nerve to invade my territory." If the rooster wants to attract more hens, it should also be aware that during the day, the hens need to lay eggs and take care of their chicks, so they would not pay attention to him if he crows late at night. It would be better for him to get a good night's sleep, keep his energy, and wait for dawn to come before he spends time with his wives, concubines, mistresses, and wildflowers on the roadside. Therefore, the rooster's crowing is only automatic behavior, but the rooster's unintentional crowing serves conscious purposes. Then, who designed this purpose? Who but the greatest creator? 28. 蜜蜂的智慧. 28. The wisdom of bees. What kind of house structure is most reasonable if we humans are to construct several hundred houses, each of which accounts person temporarily in beautiful appearance and the greatest cubage? Should the houses be made of interconnected cylinders? No, the different sizes of human legs and waists may prove a waste of some space, and the waste of space means the waste of labor and materials. So it is not the most economical way of house building. In addition, Cylinders have too little contact area between them, and it is not enough to serve as a wall for two rooms. Should the houses be made of interconnected cubes? No, the four corners will be a waste of space. It does not look very pretty either. Should the houses be made of adjoining octahedrons? No, the more sides a structure has, the more difficult it is to build and more time-consuming. Should houses be made of many irregular shapes? No, the houses thus constructed will not appear good, besides a lot of more time and material may be wasted. Then what structure is most reasonable? The honeycomb of bees is the most ideal structure. The honeycomb is made up of hexagonal columns. Since the lower part and middle part of the larva are different in sizes, the bottom of the honeycomb has been made into three congruent rhombuses. In 1712, the astronomer G.F. Maraldi of Paris Observatory concluded through measurement that the obtuse angle of the rhombus is 109.28 degrees and the acute angle is 70.32 degrees. For these figures, a French scientist specially consulted a Swiss mathematician. What is the most economical way in terms of materials to construct a hexagonal column with a bottom consisting of three congruent rhombuses? The mathematician's result is that the column can use the least possible material only if the obtuse angle of the rhombuses is 109.28 degrees and the acute angle is 70.32 degrees. Wow, the bees are too wonderful. Long before the birth of man, they have solved the problem that man has not discovered and realized until now. Each bee knows that the column can be constructed most effectively and economically only if the obtuse and acute angles of the rhombuses are respectively 109.28 degrees and 70.32 degrees. For us humans, only the greatest mathematicians can work out the result. How can ordinary people compare with those tiny bees? Are bees smarter, more intelligent, and wiser than humans? If this is the case, why don't the bees know for whom they have toiled by gathering honey from hundreds of flowers? Humans are not only reluctant to give to others what belongs to them, but are always calculating to encroach upon what belongs to others, even wanting to occupy all the properties of the world for their own good. So, are the tiny bees carrying forward the unselfish communism style? If bees have such advanced wisdom and an open mind, they must have, according to the theory of evolution, evolved into creatures far superior to humans long ago, since they came to the earth long before the birth of humans. Why have humans overtaken bees in evolution? The founder of the theory of evolution, Darwin, exclaimed, "Natural selection is powerless to explain such a perfect structure of the honeycomb because as we see it, either in terms of labor or the use of beeswax, the honeycomb conforms to the theory of maximum economy and is absolutely perfect." Then, even the originator of the theory of evolution has realized that the wisdom of bees does not result from evolution. We are also clear that the wisdom of bees cannot compare with that of humans. And bees would certainly not carry forward the unselfish communism style for humans who have been severely exploiting them. Then there is only one origin of their wisdom: instinct. What is instinct? Instinct is the capability possessed after birth. The capability possessed after birth proved to be contradictory to the theory of evolution. So, is the theory of evolution a fallacy? Doesn't the inborn capability prove that everything has been what it is now from the very beginning? Doesn't the inborn capability prove that things are not developed through evolution but are created? Doesn't the inborn capability prove the ability of the greatest creator who has created everything? Aren't the degrees of the acute and obtuse angles of the rhombuses at the bottom of the honeycomb designed by the greatest creator and added to the instinct of the bees? Do we still want to deny the existence of the greatest creator? 29 Xiaoji Puoker Chu. 29. The chick hatches from its eggshell. The chick emerges from its eggshell after 21 days of being hatched by the hen. During this time, the yolk and egg white inside the egg transform into a chick. Before hatching, the chick is isolated from the outside world, and it does not learn how to break the shell from any external source. Despite this, the chick eventually manages to break the shell and enter the world. The rooster spends all day trying to seduce hens and never cares about the life or death of the chicks. Even if the mother hen complains that the rooster doesn't take care of the household chores or educate the offspring, the rooster has an excuse. "Who knows if I am the father of this little thing? Last month, I saw you fooling around with the neighbor's rooster." Well, the The rooster won't pass on any experience to the unhatched chicks. So, did the mother hen teach the chicks how to break out of the eggshell? No. If it had the consciousness to teach the chicks this, it would be better to just help the chicks break the shell itself. So, who taught the chick? Who told the chick about the colorful and wonderful world outside? And how does the chick know that its tender little beak can peck through the eggshell? Why is the eggshell thick enough to protect the chick yet thin enough for the chick to break through? There is only one answer: instinct. Instinct is not evolutionary. It is innate. This means that the first chick hatched from the first egg laid by the first chicken on Earth already knew that there was a world outside the eggshell where it could survive, and that its small pointed beak was strong enough to break through the eggshell. Of course, it does not have this awareness. When the time comes, it just pecks its way out. So, since it is instinct, and since the first chick hatched from the first egg on Earth already possessed this instinct without any genetic information, we can only ask the greatest creator. 30候鸟迁徙，奥秘在哪? 30 What is the secret of bird migration? When I was young, I used to see flocks of wild geese flying in the blue sky in my homeland in late summer and early autumn. Just as described in the primary school textbook, autumn is coming and it is getting cooler. A flock of wild geese is flying southward, sometimes in the formation of the fork and sometimes in a line. One day, at the turn of the rainy and dry season this year, I was queuing at a service station in Zimbabwe, where petrol was in short supply. Suddenly, some noises in the sky caught my attention. I looked out of the car window and spotted a dozen crow-like birds perched on a large tree not very far away. They were flapping their wings and making caw-caw-caw noises. Out of curiosity and boredom, I began to watch them, figuring that they must be holding a meeting and discussing the implementation of a certain project. Unexpectedly, however, their calls attracted more and more birds of the same species from all directions. In less than half an hour, nearly 1,000 birds had gathered. Suddenly, they flew away from the big tree and hovered and rose higher and higher in the sky. I wondered whether they were holding a party in this manner of hovering, or were they selecting Miss International with the most elegant flight? I came out of the car and stood on the lawn beside the road, watching them. They were hovering higher and higher in the sky until they looked smaller and smaller. I wondered, are they competing to fly the highest? Unexpectedly, the birds that flew the highest suddenly flew northwest along a straight line. The others were still circling, but they also flew along the same straight line when they reached the same height, as if they had boarded a train and rode away along the fixed railway. I finally came to realize after hard thought that those must be migratory birds. At the beginning, they clambered on the tree to hail the flock to fly together to a distant place. Later, they flew by hovering in order to increase altitude. When they reached a certain height, they met an air current. It helped them to fly to distant places more easily. Oh, how clever the migratory birds are! After returning home, I checked some documents about migratory birds and discovered more surprising facts. For example, Arctic terns build nests in the Arctic Circle. They fly to the South Pole at the turn of summer and autumn. They fly back to the North Pole next year. Every year they travel for 35,200 kilometers. There is an oriole called Blackpoll warbler, small in size and weighing only 20-odd grams. Before autumn comes, they fly from Alaska, America, to the east coast of Canada or New England, where they feast on all the dainty food to increase its fat and strength. Then, when it is turning cold, they begin a long journey of flight, first toward Africa, over the Atlantic Ocean, then after taking over an air current, they turn to Brazil and South America. The whole journey is 3,840 kilometers at an altitude of more than 6,000 meters. The flight lasts 4 days and 4 nights. The white storks in Europe fly 12,800 kilometers to spend the winter in South Africa. The long-tailed cuckoos in New Zealand fly 6,400 kilometers to spend the winter in the Pacific Islands. Seagulls in England's Isle of Man fly from Wales to Brazil at over 700 kilometers a day for 16 consecutive days. The wild geese fly over the Himalayas mountains at an altitude of 9,000 meters. What is more incredible is that generally, the older generations of cuckoos start their journey earlier. Smaller cuckoos usually start their migration a few days later. Unaccompanied by their parents, Small cuckoos make their first flight to a strange place and can fly to their destination unerringly and unite with their parents. On the contrary, young starlings set off earlier than their parents and reach their destination all by themselves. Marvelous. Incredible. I wonder how they know that the cold weather is coming. How do they know which day is suitable for flight? How do they know that there is an air current at an altitude of thousands of meters? How do they know that this air current would carry them to their desired place? How do they know that that remote place is now a time of spring and flowers with sufficient food? What power has propelled them to embark upon such an epic journey across oceans? How do they travel round trip without going astray? How do they identify directions while flying? How do they find their habitat without being accompanied and guided by their parents? I searched for scientists' explanations and found the following four major answers. Something like a biological clock inside the migratory bird can sense the upcoming cold and the appropriate time to take off and can calculate the position of the sun while flying in the sky and determine its direction and route of flying by continuously adjusting the angle between itself and the sun or stars with the help of the sun, the moon, and the stars. An inherent meteorologist, migratory birds can determine the duration of their stay at the habitat and the timing of migration according to meteorological conditions such as temperature, lighting, wind direction, and rainfall. They can choose a sunny day to begin their flight, adjust their flying manner according to the changes and fluctuations of wind directions and barometric pressures, and make use of the ascending air current for gliding to save their energy. Extremely sensitive to geomagnetic waves, migratory birds can identify their directions according to geomagnetic waves and can decide the time of migration and habitat according to the geomagnetic information known to them. Through millions of years of evolution, birds have gradually realized the rules governing the seasonal changes of climates and have formed a fixed pattern through generations of accumulation of experience and passed on the genetic information to each succeeding generation. All four explanations above seem reasonable, but a deeper analysis may reveal that they are fanciful and groundless. According to the first explanation, it seems that migratory birds can calculate their own positions, identify their direction, and derive the direction and route of flight based on the position of the sun. Well, isn't it the migratory birds who calculate the airflow at an altitude of several kilometers? Wow, migratory birds are much smarter than Einstein. With a brain the size of a little finger, they can calculate the airflow in the sky at an altitude of several kilometers without using instruments or measurements. Moreover, they can fly and calculate their direction without using a compass, a sextant, a compass, or a calculator. It's too miraculous and extraordinary. This explanation is too mythological and absurd. According to the second explanation, migratory birds are born meteorologists who can take off on a sunny day by choosing different climatic conditions. This suggests that migratory birds are more knowledgeable than all the scientists and engineers in meteorological bureaus worldwide. However, in abnormal weather conditions, migratory birds might miss the air current in the sky and have to wait for the cold current. This could be fatal for them. Swallows always return accurately to the nests they built the year before. It is said that swallows in a small town in America always return at dawn on March 29th of the following year. How should we interpret this phenomenon? The third explanation is a little mythical. Migratory birds can identify the direction through geomagnetic waves and decide the time of migration and habitat according to the geomagnetic information known to them. However, it is unclear how migratory birds can detect the existence of air currents at an altitude of thousands of meters. Light also deviates. This theory is correct, but if we use this theory to explain mirages, it is not acceptable. From the perspective of the atmosphere, not only is the density different between the convection layer, isothermal layer, intermediate layer, ionosphere, and exosphere, but the density also varies within the same atmospheric layer. Therefore, when the sun shines on the Earth, there must be light refraction occurring, and just like how we see the moon in the water, we can also see many illusory suns in the atmosphere. So why can't we see them? The density of air is not only different during the day, but also at night. When the full moon hangs in the sky, we can see the mirage of the moon reflecting on the water. So why can't we see the illusory reflection of the moon refracted into different densities of air in the sky? My explanation for the mirage is that it's not a reflection of earthly scenery in the sky, but a distortion of time and space of the Elysium world, which is a deliberate arrangement by the greatest creator to indicate to humanity that your sky is not illusory, but another time and space, another world, and that you humans have a bright future. When I introduced the Elysium of the 36-dimensional spaces, I already explained that the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world are very far away, while the Elysium world is right here, and the entire universe of the Earth belongs to the Elysium world. That is to say, the Earth, the solar system, the Milky Way, the Rotary River Galaxy, and the Low Rotary Galaxy all belong to the Elysium world. Everything we see is a kind of illusory image. Mirages are illusory, transient beauty is illusory, flowers and trees are illusory, insects, birds, and beasts are illusory, rivers, lakes, and seas are illusory, the universe is illusory, and life is also illusory. Then, where is it not illusory? The answer is, the Elysium world is not illusory. Emptiness is not empty. Form is not real. The smaller the energy, the more it takes shape, and the larger the energy, the more formless it becomes. Great form has no contour. Why can't we see the Elysium world then? Because our eyes don't have that structure. Can we see ultraviolet and infrared rays? Can we see electromagnetic and biological waves? Can we see gamma and beta rays? We are in a wonderful world, Elysium world, but we only see less than 3% of the world around us. Why can't we see it? Because our merits and virtues have not yet reached that standard. This is like someone asking, why can't I stay in the White House, the Kremlin, or Zhongnanhai? Why? Think about it yourself. Here is some information that may help us understand time and space. On January 28, 1915, a Turkish army advanced towards the 60th position in the Gallipoli region. When they climbed up the hill, several clouds descended vertically and silently enveloped the hill. Several metallic beams of light seemed to shoot out of the clouds. Then, a miraculous phenomenon occurred. The soldiers, who were brave and confident, one after another stepped into the clouds and disappeared in the clouds. A soldier named Lekade saw this terrifying scene with his own eyes. He shouted to stop his comrades, but they seemed to be deaf and crazily entered the fog. After a while, the clouds rose slowly and floated away, leaving only the hill. The whole army disappeared without a trace. Where did they go? They entered the mirage. In 1994, an Italian passenger plane flying over the African coast suddenly disappeared on the radar screen in the control room and then reappeared after a while. When the flight crew landed at the airport, the duty officer asked what had happened during the flight and why they suddenly lost track of it. The flight crew was puzzled and could not figure out what had happened because their flight had been going well without any accidents. Later, someone unexpectedly discovered that his watch was 20 minutes slow, and upon investigation, it was found that all the crew members and 315 passengers on the plane also had watches that were 20 minutes slow. What happened during those 20 minutes? Where did they go? Why weren't they aware of it? And why didn't it show up on the radar screen? In the Universe, Time and Space chapter, I talked about how time is divided into latitudinal time and longitudinal time. Longitudinal time is the time of the material world, and latitudinal time is the time of the non-material world. Humans exist in longitudinal time, which is like the x-axis of a complex function, while latitudinal time is the z-axis. When a person or object disappears from longitudinal time, they enter the realm of latitudinal space-time. No matter when they return, it is still the same time point for them, but for us, it may have been a year, 10 years, or hundreds of years. The Italian plane disappeared for 20 minutes because it entered the realm of latitudinal space-time. For the plane and the people on board, it might have been just a blink of an eye, so they were not aware that they had disappeared. However, for the people in the airport control room, it was a full 20 minutes. What is the realm of latitudinal space-time? The mirage is an example of the realm of latitudinal space-time. When I was a child, my grandmother told me a story. One day, a woodcutter got lost in the mountains while chopping wood. He wandered around for a while and suddenly saw two old men playing chess on a beautiful hillside. He didn't want to disturb them, so he squatted next to them to watch. Everything was so peaceful and natural, but the only thing that confused him was that the leaves on the trees next to him turned from yellow to green, and then from green to yellow, changing colors from time to time. After a while, when he looked away and then back, the two old men were gone. He shuddered and suddenly realized that this was a place he was very familiar with from chopping wood before. He followed the familiar path home. When he arrived at the village, he found that his village had undergone a great change. He suspected that it was not his own village. He walked towards his home along the path he remembered, and everyone he met on the way looked at him with unfamiliar eyes. He didn't recognize any of them. He suspected that he had gone to the wrong village and asked the people he met about his old village. They all said that it was the village he was asking about. He asked if they knew certain people, but they replied that they were someone's grandfather or grandmother who had already passed away. When he asked about himself, they answered that he was someone's grandfather who had gone out to chop wood one day when he was young and never returned. Now let's analyze why the woodcutter got lost while he was chopping wood in a familiar mountain. This was because he suddenly entered a mirage, and the environment was no longer the familiar environment he had known before. Therefore, he was bound to get lost. Why did he suddenly understand where he was after shivering? This was because the mirage disappeared, and he stood in the place he had been familiar with before, so he suddenly understood. Why wasn't he disappearing together with the mirage, since he was fortunate enough to be in the mirage, the Elysium world? This was because his spiritual quality had not yet reached the standard of living completely in the Elysium world. Then why did he have to witness the scene of the Elysium world with his own eyes? This was because he was destined to, and the two old men playing chess were definitely his relatives and friends in his previous life who had come to enlighten him and make him understand that although he did not yet have the qualifications to live completely in the Elysium world does exist. He could realize this truth, laying a foundation for him to enter the Elysium world in the future. This is a story about time and space. The woodcutter entered another realm of time and space, and when he returned from latitudinal time, he was still himself, but hundreds of years had passed in the longitudinal time of the mortal world. Therefore, the mirage is just an emergence of the Elysium world. Those who see the mirage may not have entered that realm, but they have the fortune to witness the scenery of the Elysium world. The mirage can appear not only in the sky, but also on the ground. The scene of two old men playing chess that the woodcutter saw was a mirage on the ground. Even though there were many people near the mountain at that time, only the woodcutter could see it. Others couldn't see it no matter what they did, just like the hallucinations that appear in the brain of a person who has taken heroin. He really saw those scenes, and the people next to him couldn't see them no matter what. Those who see the mirage are lucky. If we realize that different time and space have different scenery, we can develop our thinking and understand that our world is just a material world in the space-time of the universe. There are many more beautiful worlds outside this material world, so why not go to that more beautiful place? God does not just consider us as a group of animals. He has revealed to those who are spiritual awakening another quiet and brilliant path of life. God, Jesus, and Buddha Shakyamuni are not fooling us. All swindlers are for their own personal gain. But were Jesus and Buddha also seeking personal gain? They gave up everything in the world, so why would they need to deceive us? Deceiving wealthy people can bring them money, deceiving officials can bring some benefits, but what is the point of deceiving us who have nothing? 37. 梦, 在昭示着什么? 37. Dream. What does it signify? Dreamland is one of the 36-dimensional time and spaces. A dream is a phenomenon behind which there is a hidden essence, as is the case with any phenomenon. It is the hidden essence that has caused the emergence of the phenomenon. A mirage is only a phenomenon, but the essence that has caused the phenomenon of a mirage is the Elysium world. Movement is a phenomenon, but the essence causing the occurrence of this phenomenon is instinct and gravitation. Man is also a phenomenon, and the essence prompting the emergence of man is the transmigration of life. What is the essence of a dream? The essence of a dream is the rehearsal and presage of future events. Let's first have a look at some examples of dreams. On an April night in 1865, Lincoln, the well-known American president, had a dream in which he discovered a crowd of people wailing when he strolled in the White House. He entered a room and found that his soldiers were guarding a corpse. He asked them whose body this was. They answered, "The president. He was assassinated." The next day, he told this dream to his wife and other people. Several days later, this terrible dream came true. President Lincoln was assassinated. Before the sailing of the famous passenger ship Titanic, a British merchant named Canon Middleton dreamed of the ship floating on the sea with upturned keels, crews, and passengers around were swimming and floating. The next night he had the same dream, which prompted him to cancel the plan to travel by Titanic. Very soon, his dream became a reality. In August 2002, I had this dream. I was walking on a strange road when suddenly a massive cloud drifted over my head. I jumped up to pull the cloud down only to find that the cloud resembled a bundle of coiled cotton. I unfolded the bundle layer by layer and saw a new hat, a new suit of clothes, and a new pair of shoes in the bundle. The only thing lacking was a pair of trousers. The next day, I told my wife about the dream, who grumbled, "That might not be a good omen." In the next few months, I busied myself madly for several people who claimed to have lost the love of their fathers, and they affectionately called me Dad. But I was fooled and cheated, nearly ripped off all my belongings earned through years of hard work. This is really a case 3 decades of toil end up in nothing in a night's time. Later, upon reflection, I came to realize the omen of this dream. New hat, new clothes, and new shoes foretold that I would have no hat, clothes, and shoes to wear. In the dream, no trousers appeared, so I was left with a scanty amount of property to subsist on. There is another dream story that I can't remember which book it was recorded in or the specific names of the people involved. During a certain dynasty in China, there was a high-ranking official who dreamt that he was riding in the carriage of the chancellor, while the chancellor was pulling the carriage for him. However, they only went 8 steps. When he woke up, he analyzed the dream for several people and said that he would replace the prime minister's position and his term would be 8 years. Later, the fact proved that his dream was completely fulfilled according to his analysis. The above, for example, show that far from being illusory and untrue, dreams are rehearsals and revelations of future realities. There are a large number of dreams in this aspect that have been recorded in many books, both foreign and domestic, ancient and modern, especially in the Bible. In fact, as long as each person summarizes themselves, they will find that all their dreams are a demonstration of the future. Whether we can uncover the mystery of them depends on our analytical ability and spiritual perception. I found that the ancient Chinese book, Zhou Gong's Dream Interpretation, is a very valuable book, and the corresponding relationship between what is dreamed and what it signifies is almost always correct. Everyone can analyze their own dreams in comparison. Freud's famous book, The Interpretation of Dreams, has some value in psychoanalysis, but it is a mess in analyzing the essence of dreams. In the chapter, The Unconscious and Consciousness Reality, Freud said, "Can dreams predict the future? Of course not. Dreams provide us with experiences of the past. Many dreams clearly predict the future, but Freud does not admit it. Many dream experiences are unimaginable for anyone who dreams, but Freud insists that those dreams provide us with experiences of the past. The majority of people believe that dreams are fantasies and illusions emerging from their subconsciousness. But I would say that the visions of dreams are not scenes in the subconsciousness, but rather the revelation of another time and space. Our bodies are sleeping on the bed, but our spiritual beings have left our bodies and entered another time and space. Let's look at the following example. An American businessman named Wilmot once took the passenger ship called Limerick and left Liverpool, England for America. One night he dreamed that his wife, whom he had not seen for a long time, came aboard his ship in sleepwear. She walked directly toward him and kissed him. When she attempted to sleep with him, she spotted another man in the cabin. Thus she hesitated for a second and vanished. The next morning, a man named William Ted, who shared the cabin with him, said to him, "Last night I saw you with a woman." And he forced Wilmot to clarify whether he had secretly seduced any woman. Wilmot was greatly surprised. "Last night I dreamed that my wife came to see me. Have you also had this dream and seen the scenes of my dream?" What is even more amazing, when he returned to his home in New York, his wife told him that she once dreamed that she went aboard his ship and kissed him but left when she discovered another man in the cabin. Weird? Inconceivable? The above is a typical dream. In fact, none of our dreams are illusory. Instead, they all have a solid existence. A story is thus recorded in a book. 2 girls shared a room with 2 separate beds. One night, One of the girls dimly saw a handsome man having sex with her roommate. The roommate was groaning with a great sense of comfort. Blushing shamefully, she quickly covered her head with the quilt. After a while, when she had completely sobered up, she lifted the quilt to steal another glance, but found that the man had left, and her roommate was sleeping like a log. The next morning, she impatiently said to her roommate, "What did you do last night? Be honest and tell me who that man was." Completely taken aback, her roommate thought to herself, "How did she know what happened in my dream last night?" So she put on a bold face. "What man? I have been sleeping on my bed all night. Stop talking nonsense." The girl rebuked. "I thought we were good friends for years. I saw clearly that you were sleeping with a handsome man last night. Why do you deny it?" Without a choice, her roommate told her that in her dream last night, she could not resist the temptation of a handsome man and had an affair with him. Things in dreams are more complex than things in the real world. Even if a person spends their entire lifetime studying dreams, they cannot fully explore them. I will only give a few examples to tell everyone that dreams are another time and space, another real world. So far, human understanding of dreams is only at the surface level. Only by believing in the greatest creator can we uncover many mysteries in the universe. Without the greatest creator, we humans are like a group of headless flies, blindly bumping into things. 38. 宗教与上帝. 38. Religion and the greatest creator. First, we must understand what religion is. Religion is a spiritual and psychological activity through which man gets to know, believe in, worship, and follow gods and Buddhas. Strictly speaking, only Christianity and Buddhism are true religions. Although Islam and Catholicism are also religions, their excessive administrative interference in secular affairs means that they cannot be considered pure religions. Although Hinduism predates Buddhism, it can only be seen as a source of Buddhism. Sikhism is a hybrid derivative of Indian Bhakti movement and Islamic Sufism, and its content can be found in Buddhist scriptures and the Quran, so it does not have an independent ideological system. Taoism in China mainly emphasizes the unity of man and nature, the interaction between man and nature, and does not have a set theory about gods, so it can only be seen as a kind of social activity of human beings, and not a spiritual and psychological activity of understanding, believing, worshiping, and following gods and Buddhas. Shintoism in Japan is a hybrid of Buddhism and Taoism and has no new content or system. Roman Catholicism, Protestantism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and other denominations are branches of Christianity without independent philosophical systems. The original religions were mainly worship of ghosts, ancestors, totems, and idols, without a complete understanding of gods. Therefore, they can only be regarded as a social activity of people and cannot rise to the height of religion. Ancient Egyptian religion, ancient Babylonian religion, worship of the Emperor of Heaven during the Yin and Zhou dynasties in China, Phoenician religion, Hittite religion, Vedic religion, ancient Iranian religion, and so on, were basically the evolution of primitive religions, mainly worshipping nature or natural forces without a perfect understanding of God. Therefore, they can only be regarded as a social activity and cannot become pure spiritual and psychological activities. Zoroastrianism, called the worship of fire in Chinese history, had its own independent understanding of God and was later absorbed by Christianity and Buddhism. Its essence can be found in the classics of Christianity and Buddhism. The essence of the two teachings, three levels theory of Manichaeism, called Mingjiao in China, can also be found in the classics of Christianity and Buddhism, but it cannot be regarded as an independent and perfect system. Brahmanism is essentially Vedic religion, a religion in ancient India whose gods were mainly personified natural phenomena. Its three paths and four lives theory was corrected and promoted by Shakyamuni. Hinduism has a long history and a vast content, but it lacks a clear idea and route, giving people a sense of confusion and being at a loss. Therefore, it cannot be called a religion. Jainism has a long history and an independent theoretical system. Its essence has been included in Buddhism, and its dross has been overturned by science. It cannot continue to survive as a religion. Strictly speaking, Judaism is not a religion of God, but a religion of the greatest creator. Its scriptures mainly include the Old Testament part of the Christian Bible. However, as a religion of the greatest creator, it is not perfect and cannot answer the minimum questions about the characteristics of the greatest creator, making people unconvinced. Although the Kirtan and the Bhakti movement pursue spiritual perception and love for God, it confuses the greatest creator and gods, and its leader does not recognize it as a religion, but as a scientific movement, which also confuses science and religion. Therefore, we can only regard it as a manifestation of ancient Indian philosophy in the current stage and cannot rise to the level of religion. Other small religious groups are blind spiritual and emotional pursuits of some people's emotional and spiritual emptiness, wanting to get rid of loneliness and seek group recognition or comfort, like a group of people gathering together to chat and relieve boredom, which cannot become a religion. In the future, only Christianity and Buddhism will remain as religions, and the rest will gradually decline with the development of science and human progress. Christianity and Buddhism are two relatively independent and relatively complete religions, but they are also two conflicting religions. However, as a social phenomenon, religion will inevitably disappear over time, and all religions, beliefs, schools of thought will be unified into one uniform belief system. How can all religions be unified into one uniform belief system? Let's take a look at the religions that have appeared in history. At the beginning of each religion, all its followers were firmly convinced that their religion was the only true religion that would exist forever and that other religions were all evil cults and heresies. However, with the development of time, the progress of mankind, and especially the flourishing of science, those religions have all faded out from the stage of history. Then, can Christianity and Buddhism exist forever? We have to ask the greatest creator to answer this question. Can the greatest creator create two mutually contradicting religions? If this question is not easy to answer, we might as well ask directly, was religion created by the greatest creator? If the answer is yes, then the disappearance of religions and the mutual contradictions between different religions can only prove the disorganized thinking of the greatest creator. However, the greatest creator we recognize is not like that. If the answer is no, this shows that Christianity and Buddhism are not the religion of the greatest creator. Since religion is not created by the greatest creator, we can say it was created by humans, or by gods, or by Buddha. Regardless of whether it was created by humans, gods, or Buddha, if it contradicts itself, cannot answer all the questions raised by humans, and cannot explain all phenomena related to the universe, nature, and life, then this religion will be unable to continue guiding humanity. Therefore, no matter how much the followers of the religion cannot accept reality emotionally, the inevitable outcome of this religion is decline. Religion was progressive and drove the development of human history when it first appeared. But if we hold on to certain dogmas and use doctrines from 2,000 years ago to guide people's current activities, it will hinder the development of our spirituality. It is like dynasties in human history. When they were first established, they greatly promoted the development of social productivity and promoted social progress. However, as time went on, what was once progressive became outdated and became a shackle that hindered social development. As Marx analyzed, when a superstructure does not adapt to its economic foundation and production relations do not suit the development of productive forces, this superstructure and production relations will inevitably be eliminated and replaced by more advanced ones. The reason why science can always prevail is that it is constantly evolving. If Einstein held on to Newtonian mechanics, he could not have developed the theory of relativity. If we think that the theory of relativity is universally applicable, quantum mechanics would be difficult to develop. The development of mathematical history also proves that only through development can we have a future. By constantly exploring and advancing natural numbers, positive numbers, negative numbers, integers, fractions, irrational numbers, rational numbers, imaginary numbers, and complex numbers, we created a magnificent mathematical palace. If we still cling to natural numbers, deny the existence of other numbers, and do not explore, and try to solve all problems with natural numbers, humanity will still live in barbarism and ignorance in caves and tree branches. Do we still doubt the major trend in religion, which advocates for the unification of all religions into one belief system? We must continue to explore and advance, and it is necessary to predict the unification of all religions into one belief system in advance. The unification of all religions into one belief system does not mean that all religions are assimilated into one religion. It is no longer a spiritual and psychological activity of understanding the greatest creator, believing in the greatest creator, worshiping the greatest creator, and following the greatest creator, but rather a reverence and praise of the greatest creator. There is only one greatest creator in the universe, but there are countless gods. The greatest creator is not a god, and a god is not the greatest creator. Worshipping gods can only obscure people's vision. Only by worshiping the greatest creator can we have a clear direction forward. The unification of all religions into one belief system is the liberation of human nature, not another spiritual and mental shackle for humanity. It allows people to enjoy life freely, rather than being bound to a church or temple to perform tedious rituals. The unification of all religions into one belief system means equality for all, not setting up more popes, spiritual leaders, priests, and monks to dictate people's lives and actions. The unification of all religions into one belief system does not have fixed scriptures and doctrines, but it is about promoting all the wisdom achievements of humanity. The unification of all religions into one belief system is no longer about followers of different religions. Everyone is a follower, and at the same time, nobody is a follower. All people are children of the greatest creator, not of any particular deity or Buddha. In essence, the unification of all religions into one belief system is the true religion of the greatest creator. Although it is called a religion, it is not actually a religion. Will Christianity and Buddhism really exit the historical stage? There are many people in the world who are fervently spreading their faith, which is commendable. I hope that everyone participates in religious activities. However, every preacher must be clear about the essence of the religion they are preaching and must be able to answer all questions about the greatest creator or Buddha. If you are ambiguous or unsure and can't even figure it out yourself, you may misinterpret the scriptures. Everyone who participates in religious activities must continue to ask questions and ask why. Once, a pair of elderly Christian missionaries zealously preached to me. They had been preaching for 40 years and could almost recite the entire Bible. Unexpectedly, they encountered such a greenhorn, like me, and were bombarded with a series of questions, including who planted the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden and what its purpose was. I made the situation extremely awkward, and I had hoped to gain a lot of knowledge about the Bible from them, but instead, I hurt the feelings of the two elderly people, and I still feel guilty about it today. From my personal perspective, the most successful propagators of the Bible on earth today are the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are a group of wise, kind, and sincere people. If everyone in the world became a Jehovah's Witness, it would be the embryonic form of heaven on earth. Their publications, The Watchtower and Awake, are collections of all-encompassing wisdom. But there are no perfect people, organizations, or religions in the world. I once asked my Jehovah's Witness Bible teacher, are Adam and Eve the common ancestors of mankind? The answer was yes. Then I asked, are they also the ancestors of African blacks? The teacher didn't know how to answer. Because if the answer is yes, it proves the correctness of Darwin's theory of evolution that white people can become black and black people can become white, which invisibly denies the theory of God creating humans. If the answer is no, then it means that Adam and Eve are not the common ancestors of mankind, which invisibly denies the truth of the Bible. Christianity is like this, then what about Buddhism? In today's world, there is a famous Buddhist master and a well-known lay Buddhist among Chinese people who can be said to be well-versed in Buddhist scriptures. I have carefully read their books or lectures and deeply felt their spiritual excellence and outstanding talent. Their contribution to the dissemination of Buddhism is immeasurable. However, even the best gems have flaws, but flaws do not mean that gems are not precious. Only artificial gems and glass have no flaws. Even people who have such profound knowledge of Buddhism are spreading ignorant knowledge. For example, one person said that as long as mosquitoes do not bite on the face but on other parts of the body, they should be allowed to eat their fill. We should not kill mosquitoes because killing mosquitoes is killing. Another person is very sympathetic to cockroaches and allows them to run wild in the kitchen without interference. Once, two cockroaches climbed onto the dining table, but the person couldn't bear to drive them away. This kind of love and compassion for life is worthy of promotion. The problem is this what Buddhism teaches about kindness? Buddha teaches all sentient beings are equal. What are sentient beings? Buddha Shakyamuni told Subhuti in the Diamond Sutra, all bodhisattvas and mahasattvas should subdue their minds as follows. All living beings born from eggs, wombs, humidity, or by transformation, with or without form, either thoughtful or thoughtless, and neither thoughtful nor thoughtless, are all led by me to the final nirvana for the extinction of reincarnation. This clearly tells us that not only humans, animals, insects, microorganisms, bacteria, etc., are life, but also mountains, stones, fields, clouds, rain, and snow are life. Not only visible objects are life, but also invisible things that people cannot see are life. Not only things with consciousness and thoughts are life, but also things without consciousness and thoughts are life. In the meaning of life, all sentient beings are equal. We should show mercy and compassion to all living beings and cannot kill them at will. This should be the true meaning of kindness in Buddhism. However, kindness has principles and is mutual. Kindness must be based on the basis of not harming each other. Unprincipled kindness actually leads to ignorance. Mosquitoes should have their own food and activity areas. They should not eat people and harass humans. When they live in the pond, we have no reason to harm them. But when they exceed their own living area and come to eat people, they turn to evil. Do we still need to show kindness to evil things? Cockroaches are insects and should live in their own territory. The kitchen is where humans live, not a place where cockroaches can do whatever they want. If we do not restrain them, how should we deal with rats, flies, fleas, bedbugs, centipedes, millipedes, cobras, etc.? If kindness is practiced without principle, then a large number of weeds will grow in the fields. What should farmers do? Weeds are also living beings, but if we follow the views of monks and laymen, farmers spread uncontrollably, but what will happen as a result? Humans will have nothing to eat. What should we do if we have wounds on our bodies? There are a large number of bacteria living at every wound. If we apply medicine or bandage it, we will inevitably kill those bacteria. Shall we watch the wound fester and suppurate? What should we do when a spider makes a web in the bedroom? If we destroy it, isn't that cruel to the spider? If we don't destroy it, shall we watch flies, mosquitoes, and moths get trapped in the web and let the spider devour them? Every seed of a plant is a living life. Should we grind these lives into flour to eat or not eat? There are tens of thousands of bacteria living in every glass of water. Should we drink it or not? When we walk, every step we take, every footstep kills tens of thousands of living beings under our feet. Shall we stop walking? Did Sun Wukong make a mistake when he fought the white bone demon 3 times? Should all the police be disbanded and go home to hug their children? No wonder the areas where Buddhism prevails have relatively dirty and chaotic environments. It is to protect life. Buddhist countries know how to protect themselves, nor are they willing to stop the evil things around them and let them run rampant in the world. It turns have a kind heart. The purpose of religion should first be to liberate people, break the shackles that bind human nature, and let people live happier, freer, and more blessed lives, rather than add many more shackles. The more rules and regulations there are, the further away from the teachings of God and Buddha. Religion seems to be somewhat related to ignorance. The greatest creator did not create. Religion is a of emotions. After the unification of all religions, beliefs, one belief system, the greatest creator will directly manage humanity, and the wisdom of Jesus, Sakyamuni, and Lao Tzu will not be forgotten, but will be greatly developed. 39. 科学与文明. 39. Science and civilization. Religion walks with ignorance, and science and civilization is an activity and knowledge that recognizes, explains the laws of operation of nature, human society, of thought. Civilization is a human conscious and voluntary behavior formed on the basis of correctly of science, civilization is just wishful. The